Hi everyone, welcome to Real Life Cooking. I'm Chefleen. I'm really close right now. Notice I'm in a new kitchen. I have a new technological guru, so it's going to take a second to get this together. Carolyn, do you see the live video to join?
Yes, I see it.
All right, so join in, or you can watch it. And then let me just go ahead and start the Instagram.
Oh, looks good.
Oh, hi, I'm Maureen. Welcome. All right, so it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to Real Life Cooking. We're gonna get started. Oh, I'm on Instagram too. As repeated, I have a new technological guru today. No other than the most amazing sister ever, Carolyn, over there. Oh, hi TT on Instagram. We're just waiting for her to find me on Instagram. What are you doing over there? Oh, she has other responsibilities, so this is not her first priority. Hi Brandon. All right, so just go ahead and turn down your phone now, so you can't double. Okay. Oh, there you go. Hi Carolyn. Dorji. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Nice. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put my phone down so you can see me. As you can see, I'm in a new kitchen. This is actually the kitchen I grew up in. Whoa, sorry Instagram people. I grew up in this kitchen and I did a lot of cooking. My love of cooking started right here. It seems a lot smaller than I remember when I used to cook here, I guess because I was a little smaller. But yeah, welcome. So welcome to Real Life Cooking. Today we are making panko coated fish tacos with quinoa and beans, which before all of you go, ew, disgusting. Quinoa is really good for you, and it's actually pretty delicious if you know how to flavor it correctly. As promised, I have a special guest today. My dad will be joining us shortly. And again, if you didn't hear before, with all our beginning issues, I have a new technological guru, Carolyn, my sister, on the ones and twos. She will be reading simultaneously Facebook and Instagram and relaying your questions to me. So throughout this whole show, you can ask me any culinary question and I will try to answer it to my best of my ability. If you're cooking along, woohoo, aren't you excited? Fish tacos are pretty much the best food in the whole entire world. So we'll get started. I think it's about 4. Oh, actually, so that I'm feeling like really confused too, because normally when I do this in New York, it's dark outside. It's still like a beautiful day, so I realize why no one in California watches the show, because it's like so nice outside. You're probably still outside. But if you are, welcome. Thank you for watching. Thank you if you watched several weeks before. This is the 4th time I'm doing this, again from California. So what is real life cooking? Real life cooking is cooking that makes sense from your life. I cook a meal from start to finish, no gimmicks, no TV magic. Question.
Can I use another fish besides cod?
Yes, who asked that question?
TT.
TT Lido, are you cooking along? Yes, you can use any sort of white firm fish that you would like. Cod is actually pretty easy to find in many grocery stores, which is why I chose cod. Often fish tacos are used, mahi-mahi is also used for fish tacos, but I find mahi-mahi works better when it's grilled, not necessarily fried, because it's a lot more firm and dense. But to get started, we'll be making panko fried fish tacos and quinoa with beans. And let's go ahead and get started so we can start eating sooner than later. So yes, the first thing we're going to do is deal with our quinoa. Now quinoa, we often call it a grain, but it's actually a seed. It's a flowering plant and it is a seed. This quinoa is from Peru because my parents are retired and go travel the world to all these amazing different places. So this is direct from Peru, which is actually the first people that ate quinoa like over 5,000 years ago. They ate quinoa, so all I'm going to do is rinse off my quinoa. I'm using, as it goes everywhere, I'm using a fine mesh strainer, so I'm just going to do this over the sink because I was making a little bit. And I'm going to just measure out, I said about a half a cup. About 1 cup of dried quinoa makes 3 cups of cooked quinoa. Do you have a question?
Someone's spelling quinoa wrong. You should show them how to spell it.
Someone's spelling?
You should show them the box.
Oh, quinoa is actually spelled Q-U-I-N-O-A, spelling bee. Yes, yes. Remember I told you in my last episode I'm a horrible speller. I got out the word avalanche in 3rd grade. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and rinse off this quinoa. This is black quinoa. Quinoa comes in a lot of different varieties. It comes in white, it comes in red, and it comes in black. And the darker it gets, oh hi Instagram, sorry. The darker it gets, the more flavorful it is. So if you are not really, if you don't think you like quinoa, you probably want to start off with the white quinoa because it has the least amount of like potent flavor. And by rinsing it off, we're going to take away some of the element, which is called saponin, which is bitter. And so rinsing it off gives it another level of less bitterness. Yes, question?
Which is better for cooking, sprouted or unsprouted quinoa?
As I said, cooking quinoa is totally a matter of preference. The darker it becomes, then the more flavorful it's going to be. So if it's a cross between like a white and a black, it'll probably have sort of mysterious flavor. It really is totally your taste preference. If you like more intense flavor, you want to go with darker. If you like less intense flavor, you want to go with whiter. If you want an in-between, like me kind of person, you want to go with the sprouted quinoa. So I just put my dried quinoa that I rinsed off into some boiling water on the stove. I'm going to cook my quinoa just like I cook rice and pasta, a big pot of water, and just cook it until it tastes done. Now, this is a lot easier. I've made a mess here, so I'm going to wash this off. This is a lot easier to do because instead of like measuring out like half a cup of quinoa to 3 cups of water, you might burn your quinoa that way. You could have the proportions off. It's just easier to just watch it. Cooking is active. Remember, cooking is active. So we just want to watch our pot. So after about 10 minutes, Caroline, can you let me know and I'll check on our quinoa. Also, before we get started, my sister is looking very overwhelmed by the amount of tasks that she has. Yes, question.
What's the ratio of dry quinoa per serving?
So dry quinoa, so 1 cup, you guys are asking me to do math now. 1 cup of dry quinoa equals 3 cups of cooked quinoa. I would say a serving of quinoa is about a half of cup, depending on how much you're eating. In this case, we're going to mix our beans and our quinoa together, so that's why I only told you to make a half a cup. I actually poured probably way more than a half a cup, but that's okay because there's a lot of people here, so everyone will be happy and hungry, and my sister doesn't eat fish, so that will be her dinner. So we have our quinoa boiling in back, and before I pull out our fish or get started on anything else, we are going to be sort of pan deep frying today. And the most important thing when you're pan frying or deep frying is your oil temperature. And the last thing you want to do is bread all your fish and then be waiting for your oil to come to temperature, because what that's going to do is you're going to get to all your fish be breaded and your oil's not going to be at temperature, and you're going to be like, oh well, let me just put the fish in there, and that's going to produce oily, disgusting fish. So we want to go ahead and get our oil started on our stove. Ooh, I forgot I heated this up earlier, so that was hot. Good thing I have chef hands. So I'm using a cast iron skillet. This skillet is actually like 20 years old. I'm really excited to use a cast iron skillet because I don't have one in my own home. It retains heat a lot better than any other pan, and they last for years and years and years. This could probably be handed down to me, but I'll probably end up buying my own before this gets handed down to me.
You can have it.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and use some oil. I'm not actually deep frying because one, deep frying is kind of wasteful. I think you use like way too much oil. I just want to maybe put up into the pan about a half of an inch of oil. And I'm using just regular canola oil, but you can use any kind of oil that you would like that has a high heat tolerance. So canola oil, vegetable oil, avocado oil, peanut oil, grapeseed oil is great. Yeah, grapeseed oil is actually like a little healthier than canola oil, but the thing about avocado oil is really healthy, but it's so much more expensive that it's not really practical to use on a day-to-day like deep frying basis. So I have my oil in my pan, about a half an inch. I'm not deep frying here, and I'm just going to put this back on the stove and put this on low heat, so it can start heating up while I prepare the rest of my ingredients. And you guys can watch it, so if it goes up in flames, let me know. Yes, question?
Someone asked olive oil, question mark.
Olive oil, no, not for deep frying or pan frying. Because when you heat olive oil up, especially not extra virgin olive oil. If you get one of those blends that's like cheap, that's kind of okay. But extra virgin olive oil is a live living thing, and if you heat it up, you destroy all the properties, you destroy all the flavors. So I would definitely not recommend olive oil in this application. All right, so we're gonna pull out our fish now, and this is going crazy back here. There we go.
Someone said how much oil is in the pan?
There's about a half an inch of oil in the pan. And we're pulling out our beautiful fish here. This is actually ling cod that was caught from Costco. Love Costco. My dad actually brought this fish from Costco. And he suggested that ling cod is actually superior to regular cod. Any comments on to why you think that is, Dad? Ling cod over regular cod?
Oh, it's a deeper water fish.
It's a deeper water fish, and its texture is going to be a little more flaky. So that's why we're going to use this ling cod. And before I get my batter or anything ready, I'm just going to cut the cod into pieces that I want. Ooh, you guys can't really see that well. 1 second, my hands are very fishy. Yes, question.
Is it true you don't have to wash cast iron with soap?
Yes and no. The question was, is it true if you don't have to use cast iron for soap, or you don't have to use soap with cast iron? If you're not cooking like meats or fish or anything like that, scoop one over.
Just so that Instagram people can see.
Oh, thank you. Oh, and all this stuff is in the way. Sorry, Instagram. You guys are getting a little neglect over here. There you go. Can you see now? Yeah. All right. So, what was I saying about my fish? Oh, so cast iron and soap. So if you're cooking stuff that could carry bacteria, you definitely want to use soap. But the thing about cast iron is you definitely never want to let it soak in water for a long extended period of time, because your pan will actually rust. And then you have to re-season it, which is a whole process that I'm not going to get into now. But maybe I'll write a blog about it, because it's actually really important to know how to take care of your cast iron pan if you want it to last a lifetime. So for our fish, we want to cut it into manageable pieces, because no one's going to eat a fish taco with a piece of fish this big. So what we're going to do is, you have a couple of options here. You can cut it into small cubes, or you can cut it into what I like, which is strips. So I'm going to cut it into strips like this, about this big. See here? There we go. And I'm just going to cut, so basically in each taco, there'll be one, maybe two of these strips. Probably one, because I'm using small corn tortillas. Ah, there goes fish flying. And then, once I have all these fish strips cut, I'm actually going to season them with some salt and pepper, and then I'm going to mix up my batter. So as you can see, and then this piece, you see this giant piece of fish, I'm actually going to cut in half. I imagine this fish just like slipping from my hands and falling to the ground. That would be really interesting live TV. I'm going to actually cut it in the middle, right here. And then I'm going to cut my pieces, my length pieces. And actually, so you see towards the end, this is the tail end of the fish. I'll probably cut it at a diagonal so it's a little more even, a little longer and at a diagonal. I'll show you what I mean. So instead of cutting it straight across, I cut it at a diagonal. So it's about the equal size of this. It's just a little thinner. So this won't take very long at all. It'll take like a minute to cook. Cut it at a diagonal. And then we have these pieces. Now when you're buying your fish, you always want to buy fish that doesn't smell fishy, because that means it's probably not so great. You also, if you can have, obviously this came from Costco, so it wasn't a fishmonger where you can like touch it or have the fishmonger touch it. You don't want it to smell fishy. You don't want it to be slimy. You want the flesh to be nice and firm, just like this. So yeah, when you're buying fish, make sure it doesn't smell fishy. And when you buy your fish, you want to cook it, hopefully like within a day or two of when you buy it, because fish is just not something you want sitting in your fridge forever. And if you can, keep it in the darkest, coolest point of your fridge, and keep it on ice. That'll keep it as fresh as possible. Yes, question.
Someone asked, where's your dad?
Good question. Who asked that question?
Tina Richards.
Oh, hi Tina. You asked just in time, because this is when I was going to bring him on to make the fish batter. I'm going to just move my fish to this bowl, switch out my knife and my cutting board, because this is really fishy.
Someone else needs to move back.
Oh. Alright, great. Alright, come on over. So welcome, my dad. Oh, come on, you have to get in the camera.
Okay.
Don't be camera shy now.
Hello everyone, welcome to the O'Brien Price home.
So yes, this is my dad. He loves fish. Well, he loves to fish. He also loves to cook. And I learned a lot from him growing up cooking. Not really because he taught me, but because he only made meat and I had to make a lot of side dishes. His thing growing up was like barbecuing outside. He actually wanted to barbecue for this episode. I was like, I don't know how that's gonna work with the wind and the sun. So we decided on fish tacos because he's actually made a change of diet recently. He's been eating a lot more fish and whole grains and vegetables because it's just a little healthier for you. And of course we're frying this fish, but It actually doesn't make the fish that unhealthy because fish is such a lean protein and it's in the oil for such a short amount of time that it doesn't actually make it like super unhealthy. But that's why oil temperature is very important. So I'm gonna have you help out. If you can season this with salt, and while I make the batter. So I have a bowl for my batter here. And I have a cup of flour. We've had this flour thing, like it's probably older than me. I feel like we've had this forever. I used to make cookies for Christmas with my mom.
Someone likes your shirt.
Oh, why thank you.
No, not yours.
Oh.
It said fine shirt, Pops.
All right, thanks.
And where can he get one? This is Gil.
Anchorage, Alaska.
So yeah, my dad actually went to Alaska. My mom and my dad, they took their RV all the way up to Alaska. I'm just seasoning my flour. So before I get on this tangent of Alaska and fishing, we're making our batter. So I have a cup of flour, and I want to put a tablespoon of cornstarch in here.
Is it all-purpose flour?
All-purpose flour. If you are gluten-free, you could try using an all-purpose gluten-free flour mix. And then just a tablespoon of cornstarch, which is going to make it lighter. And then in the instructions, if you're cooking along, I told you, like, I had all these different kinds of spices, right? I was like, cumin, chili powder, Latin mix, whatever. So I want to make this easy for you. Whatever is in your cabinet that is Latin inspired is what you should be putting in here. And I would say about a teaspoon of each thing. So I kind of just like raided their cabinet, and we have some onion powder, and you really, really want to season this heavily. Like, keep shaking until you think that it's too much, and then that'll probably be just enough. Because this is where all your flavor, besides the fish, is going to come from. So I have some onion powder, I have some oregano. Actually, normally on my spices, I think this thing is really dumb, so I just like dump it in. It's like living on the wild side there. And then I have some chili powder. And as you can see, we all know spices are super expensive. Like this little thing is like $6. So if you don't cook that often, it actually might be better to just buy like a Latin seasoning mix. And then you can just add that in. And then I found this Gourmet Collection Spice Blend. Where did this come from?
Where did we get that?
It's Fisherman's Seafood Spectacular. So I'm gonna add some of that in. It has paprika, lemon, garlic, lime, rosemary. It smells really good. Like I said, this is just seasoning. We just want to really season our surprise visitor at the door. All right, so we're gonna mix this flour together. And the last, final, most important thing that we put in our flour is salt. And we want to season our flour super salty. So the dog you hear in the back is our family dog, Bowser. He's 9 years old. He's this giant German Shepherd. I'm surprised he hasn't come and like attacked us in here. So now we have our flour mixture, right like this. There we go. And the last thing that we're gonna add is some beer or seltzer. So if you are using beer, totally fine. Beer, what we really want is the carbonation inside of here. The carbonation is going to make the batter light and fluffy, similar to a tempura batter, but we're not going to use any egg. We're just going to use the seltzer or the beer. And if you don't drink beer, I really think I'm allergic to beer because I almost died in Brazil drinking a beer. So I'm going to use seltzer, but beer does actually add like a tangy flavor. So if you're going to use beer, I would suggest using like a darker ale. I don't know my dad drinks kind of beer. So what's a good beer? What's a flavorful beer?
Heineken would work in there.
Heineken.
Yeah.
Keith Price's suggestion is Heineken. All right. So we have. Well, I'm using club soda because I want to eat these later. Even though I also try to stay away from flour, but whatever. You only live once. You have to eat, right? All right, so I said about 1.5 cups to the amount of, what did I say? Amount of dry ingredients. I'm gonna eyeball it as usual, but if you would like to measure it, 1.5 cups of seltzer is how much you need. And what we're looking for is something slightly thinner than pancake batter. So, and we wanna do this, you wouldn't wanna make this batter ahead of time because you want those bubbles, you want that carbonation, and you also, as I keep stirring and stirring, don't want to overmix it because the overmixing is going to create gluten with your flour, and that's going to make a tough batter, and it won't be light and crispy and delicious. So, Instagram, can you see can you see inside there? And there you go on Facebook. It's pretty thin. And again, like I said, I don't want to overmix it. I'm going to add some more. Thinner is better. Thinner is better because, especially in this case, because we're going to use panko to coat it again to make it even lighter and crispier. So yeah, it's going to look like that. And some lumps are okay. All right, so we have our batter. We have our fish that we already seasoned with salt. We have our batter that we mix all these spices in, whatever you have on hand that's Latin inspired. Cumin, chili powder, garlic powder. If you get one of those spice mixes, even if you get one of those taco mixes like made for ground beef, even though it has like weird ingredients like MSG probably, but that would work in here. Just anything you have. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna dip our fish in the batter, and then we're gonna dip it in our panko after we dip it in the batter. Now panko is a Japanese style breadcrumb, and what's special about panko that is not as special about real or other breadcrumbs is that panko they grind it down without the crusts. So that's why it's lighter and flakier and crispier and not as dense. So we're gonna do this, I'm gonna show you this process, and then I'm gonna hand it over to good old Keith Price and his handy dandy skills. There we go. Oh, sorry, Instagram. I have like too much space here. I'm like all spread out as opposed to like my New York kitchen where I'm like, all right, I have to be much more methodical about what I'm doing. So now I'm just making a giant mess that hopefully my mom will clean up later. All right, so what we're gonna do here, I have a baking rack lined with actually this is a baking tray lined with a baking rack. And I'm going to just take my fish, dip it in our tempura-ish batter, and then dip it in our breadcrumb, and then lay it on the tray. Now, if I was doing this by myself, or if you're doing it by yourself at home, I would really suggest, it's tempting to like do this by the stove and then just dip it in the oil as soon as you are finished, but I would really suggest, you can go ahead and start helping me. I would really suggest that you lay out all your fish first and then be ready to fry it all at once, because your hand, I love cooking shows when they like teach you how to batter something. They're like, oh, one hand's a dry hand, one hand's a wet hand. No, that never works. You're always gonna end up with disgusting, messy hands. So I would suggest just doing it all at one time, laying it out on a baking sheet, and then taking it all to the fryer at the same time. So I'm gonna keep helping you because I don't want you to think that you have to have a partner. Although I've been told by people that have cooked along already, shout out to Stephanie and Johanna and who else has cooked on? Tina Richards, yes, thank you. I've been told that cooking along with me is kind of like a game show, so it is helpful to have two people, especially if you have a question. They can like type in the question while you're doing it. But as you can see, there's no, like, both of my hands are dirty. I don't understand why cooking shows try to tell you that, like, oh, this is the easiest way. Cooking is dirty. Cooking is fun. That's part of the fun. I mean, the fun is not so fun cleaning up. But as you can see, the batter really sticks to our fish, and let me show you this on camera. When I dip my fish in, the batter is dripping off. Sorry, Instagram. Oh, I just made my dad really messy. So when I dip my fish in, it's like dripping off like this. So you don't want a thick batter. Also, you don't necessarily want to put all your panko into the bowl at the same time. You want to put it in batches, because as you dip your fish in from the batter, it's going to start to get like clumped together and mealy. Oh, thank you, quinoa. We're going to check the quinoa. Good timekeeping, Carolyn. The way I'm going to check my quinoa is I'm just going to take a spoon, dip it in the water, and take some out. Similar if you wash plastic and not put it in the hot oil, because that would be really bad. And then I'm just going to taste it. What we're looking for here is the quinoa to have some bite to it. It's going to be slightly crunchy, but and not mushy. So let me not burn myself while I do this. As you can see, I'm making way more fish than I told you to buy, but like I said, there's a lot of hungry people. Although my sister doesn't eat fish, and my boyfriend doesn't really like, well, he'll eat the fried fish, but he doesn't like soft tacos. So this quinoa is actually perfect. I'm gonna strain it out now. Another tip when you're making quinoa, if you think you don't like it, is not only do you want to rinse it off underwater, but you want to you can cook it in like chicken broth, so it's already adding like that level of flavor instead of just water. So I'm gonna strain out my quinoa. Our oil is over here doing its thing. Now, important tip, if you didn't know, don't get water in hot oil. It's a way to make a mess. Dangerous. So I'm gonna pour out my quinoa. Instagram, sorry, the sink is over here. I'm just pouring out my quinoa into the strainer. And then I like to put my strainer or my quinoa back just on top of the pot to let it cool off. Although we are going to be making a hot quinoa dish. But at this point, you could eat your quinoa like this, or if you boil some quinoa just like this, it's delicious if you just toss it in a salad. Like if you're making a salad, it's an extra dose of protein. Quinoa is so healthy for you. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's a complete protein. It has 9 essential amino acids. It has a really delicious nutty flavor. And yeah, it's super good for you. So if you can stand it, just toss it in a salad. It gives you like an extra little crunch. And yeah. All right, so we have our quinoa cooking. If you're just joining us, we are making panko coated. I almost said halibut, but panko coated fish tacos. And we are making quinoa and beans. So it's kind of like a spin because we're in California. So it's tacos and rice and beans, but we're making quinoa and beans because quinoa is a lot healthier than rice, and we're in California, the land of healthy people. Sun and sunshine. I'm so excited. I sat by a pool for like 2 days in a row. So yeah, so far we've cooked our quinoa. We just boiled it in water for 10 minutes. We rinsed it off, boiled it in water. And we also have battered our fish, and we're using a sort of like a tempura batter. Oh, I need to bring my dad home with me every time. Just cleaning along as we go along. And we also have our oil heating back here. So we're gonna actually, I'm gonna cheat a little today, I'm sorry guys, but this is real life cooking. Real life cooking, invite some friends over and you all cook a meal together. One person can be doing one thing while I'm gonna finish up the toppings for our tacos while my dad starts frying the fish. But I wanna talk about frying the fish before he starts to fry it. So we have our oil heating in the back in a cast iron skillet. If you don't have cast iron, you wanna use the most heaviest bottom pan that you have. I've talked about the importance of a thermometer. I almost packed my Thermapen, but then I was like, what if security takes it away because it has a sharp edge and it's like $100. I don't want to get that taken away. So we're gonna kind of guess and check with our oil. We do want it to be at least 350. If you have a thermometer, please use it because oil and temperature is so important. If the oil is too low, then your fish is gonna get oily, and if it's too hot, it's just gonna cook on the outside and not on the inside. And as I mentioned earlier, and what we're gonna do is just simply put our fish into the pan, and it should cook in about 2 minutes. And when it comes out, we're gonna put it on a similar situation as this. I have another sheet tray with a rack on top, and we're gonna put it on top of that, and I'll explain why as we go. But I'm gonna have my dad start cooking this in the back. He's just gonna lay it in. He's not gonna overcrowd the pan, and he's gonna be using, let me show you the tools. When you are frying something, a slotted spoon, this is why you have this in your kitchen maybe, a slotted spoon or tongs are best. A slotted spoon is actually kind of really great, or a spider, which I don't have here unfortunately, but a slotted spoon is great because sometimes when you use tongs and you're taking things out of oil, the tongs, you accidentally drop it and then you end up with a big splattery mess. The slotted spoon is a lot more controlled, you can pick it up, or even the combination of the both, you can pick up the fish and move it where it needs to be. So, my dad's gonna put this in the oil. It should start to get crispy and golden brown within a minute or two. If it doesn't, he's gonna pause and wait for the oil to get hotter because, like I said, that will make your fish oily. So I'm gonna just give this over to him at the stove. And I mentioned that frying fish is actually kind of healthy because if your oil is at the right temperature, essentially your fish is just steaming on the inside, so your fish is cooking in its own juices and all those seasonings that we made. And the oil is just getting on the outside and making the outside crispy. I need another board. Let's go ahead and rinse off the one we were using because we don't want to create a lot of dishes at the end.
Oh yeah, we have excellent temperature.
Okay, so we have excellent temperature. My dad is saying in the back. Sorry Facebook, I can't show you, but Instagram will bring you over to the frying action. Can you see there in there? This is exactly what you want. It's starting getting nice and crispy. And we have our little baking tray over there ready. So just a couple points when you're frying something. Now I gotta situate you back. When you're frying something, you wanna make sure that your oil temperature is at the right temperature, and you have all your tools ready. The last thing you want to do is start frying and then be like, oh no, where are my tongs? Like, how am I going to get this out? Where's my baking sheet? Yeah, you want to be completely ready from start to finish. Frying takes a little bit of thought on your part. Question?
No question. Someone said backstage access.
Okay. Oh, Facebook watchers are a little jealous of Instagram right now because they got the backstage action. All right, I'm going to pull out another knife, a Cutco knife. Thank you, Carolyn, for working for Cutco and bringing this lovely knives to our house. And I'm going to, so right now I'm going to work on our quinoa because our quinoa, I said, is going to cook a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and cut our onion up for the quinoa, and I'm going to start cooking that in a frying pan. And who's watched before? Who knows how to cut an onion? Who learned the tricks? Raise your hand out there. Anyone? Anyone learned the tricks of shallots and alliums and cutting? Because I've shown you already. Ooh, this is a really Instagram. You are having really good access today. So what I do is I'm going to run the knife through the onion, just horizontally, and hopefully this knife is kind of sharp. Ooh, look at my cutting board. This is dangerous. You know what I should do? Normally I would just, when I'm at home, I don't always follow all the rules, but safety first. I'm going to stabilize my cutting board with a dish towel because I don't want to cut my finger or my hand or my wrist. I don't want to cut anything. And then I'm going to cut the onion. I'm going to turn the onion towards me, use the tip of my knife, cut it through just like this, and then cut it through just like that. So I end up with nice, even pieces of onion. I'm only going to use half of the onion, but this is a great way to cut your onion, cut shallots, cut anything. It helps reduce you crying too much because you're not bruising the onion as much. If you needed your onion smaller than this at the moment, you could then nice and easily run your knife just like that. I don't need it smaller than this because I do want that nice piece inside. I'm going to take a skillet. It doesn't really matter what kind. I'm using a non-stick skillet that's about 10 years old because we just went through all my old stuff and I found this in the shed. And I'm going to heat this up and start browning my onion in just olive oil. This is a good place for olive oil. So I'll just turn on the stove back here, like a medium-high heat. Oh, I always turn on the wrong one. And where's the olive oil? Excuse me.
Miss Eleanor says you're doing a good job.
Oh, thank you, Miss Eleanor.
Well, to Daddy too.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right, so I put a little bit of oil back here. This would also be a good place for butter. Butter is more flavor if you like butter. Butter works well. And I'm just going to heat this up a little, and then I'm going to add in my onion. So in the meantime, oh, wrong thing. In the meantime, I'm going to push my onion to the side. Actually, I'll push it this way so you guys can see me cut up this jalapeno. I'm going to use a jalapeno in this. I'm going to make this spicy quinoa and beans. So I'm only going to use half because I'm not a spicy. Well, actually, Carolyn, what do you like? Do you like a lot of spice? Because this is your dinner for tonight.
I like medium spice.
Medium spice.
Balanced spice.
You never really know how hot a jalapeno is until you bite into it. It is said that peppers that come from hotter climates are actually hotter than that are grown in cooler climates. So if you really want to know, you can maybe ask your grocery store person what area of the world the pepper came from. But word of advice, when you are cutting a jalapeno, you want to, actually if you can, maybe wear gloves because peppers have this thing in them called capsaicin. And capsaicin can get on your eyes, on your hands, on your other parts of your body, and it hurts. Trust me, I've gotten in my eyes a million times. It really burns. So be careful when you're cutting your jalapeno and make sure to wash your hands afterwards. So when I cut this jalapeno, I'm actually going to cut off the top, and then I'm going to cut it in half. And that property that I was telling you about, capsaicin, jalapenos, the seeds and the pith of them have, this is a really spicy one. I just cut this open and my eyes are burning. So don't laugh at me, it's not funny. The throes of cooking. So the seeds and the pith of jalapeno actually have 100 times and 15 times more capsaicin. So if you do not like spice, you want to remove all of this. I'm actually going to remove this. And remember, when you're removing this and getting on your hands, you're getting this on your hands, which if you rub it on anything later, could actually not be good news. So just be cognizant of that. So I'm going to cut off the end. And now what I'm going to do, I actually did leave a little bit of that pith inside. I'm going to cut it into nice little strips. and I'm gonna cut it into a small dice. So this is called a julienne, the size strips. They look like about this size. There you go. And I just cut it just like that. And now I took all my little pieces and I turned them horizontal. See, Instagram, Facebook, like that. And then I'm gonna just rock my knife back and forth to make nice small dice. I'm tempted to taste this, but I want to continue the show, so I don't want to start crying in the middle of the show. I'm very adverse to spice. Yes, question.
Do you pre-soak your beans overnight or use beans out of a can?
Beans. This is quick and easy cooking, so we are using beans out of the can. I don't really have a preference either way. If you have the time, because beans, when you're cooking them, take up an hour or an hour and a half to cook. But if I were doing that, I would soak them overnight because they do make them a lot more digestible to eat. Your friends around you will appreciate the fact that you soaked your beans. So I'm going to add my onion and my jalapeno to the pan that's been preheating back here for the quinoa. And to that, I'm going to add a little bit of salt. You always want to season as you go along, building layers of flavor as you go, so you're not getting to the end and just tasting salt. How's the fish going back here?
It's coming along.
Did we taste one yet?
Not yet.
All right. My dad is going to taste the fish and see what he thinks.
Delicious.
You have to tell them. You have to tell them, not me.
Delicious.
So the fish is delicious, coming from Keith Price. Does it need any extra salt, do you think?
A bit.
Okay, so when you deep fry foods at home, the last time you want to season deep fried foods is when it comes out of the fryer. Generally, you want to give it a little sprinkle of salt. Unless you season extremely well and you taste it, and it tastes good enough to eat, then you don't need that extra layer. But generally, because the coating is pretty heavy, you do need that extra layer of salt then. So I'll let him take care of that at the end while I work on the rest of our toppings. So on fish tacos, generally, there's a few different kinds of toppings. There's pico de gallo, which is a salsa of tomato, onion, and cilantro. I like to make eating like diplomatic. A lot of people don't like cilantro. Shout out to Janine. So I'm just gonna cut up some chopped tomato, some cabbage, and let people put an avocado, and let people put what they want on their own taco. I wouldn't want to force someone to eat pico de gallo and just be sad about cilantro. So cutting tomatoes. Tomatoes are one of those things that are a little difficult to cut because they have this smooth skin. Oftentimes your knife is just like slipping around on here. Although if this knife was a little bit sharper, it would make a little bit of a dent. But look at this. This is just sad over here. So what I'm going to use is a serrated knife. Serrated knife here. That's the one with the little edges. And there's a couple of ways to do this. If you don't want, I'm going to show you if you don't want like the inside juiciness of the tomato. The first thing that you're going to do is cut off the top and the bottom. Eat those for snack. And then I'm going to cut, so I have a flat tomato. I'm going to cut down the edge. And then I'm just going to kind of cut out that center. See how it's opening up? And then we have this, we have all the seeds right here. I don't know what you would do. Maybe you want to eat this, but for this application, I'm not going to use that part. What I'm going to do is just cut my tomato into strips, similarly like I did with my jalapeno. And then I will cut my tomatoes into a nice little dice. So frying the fish, I forgot to mention, if you were making this for a party, because frying is something that's, okay, and I'm going to separate these tomatoes into two groups so it's a little easier for me. Frying fish is something obviously a little labor intensive. I have him doing it in the back. But you can fry your fish ahead of time and just leave it on that rack, and then right before your guests come, or right before you want to serve dinner, just throw it in the oven, and then just like for like 5 minutes just so it gets hot again, and it will still remain very crispy. But this is a recipe that you do want to, as soon as you cook it, you pretty much want to eat it within the day or so. I mean, I wouldn't be mad about leftover fish tacos. Yes, question.
People are saying that you changed their life. You just changed their life.
I changed someone's life? Wow, look at me. Cooking, saving the world. I mean, food does save the world, right? We all need to eat, so there we go. And these parts of the tomato go in the compost because I'm here, right, Mom? Compost. Yes. Composting is great for the environment. All right, I'm going to grab a plate to put these on. get all of our toppings ready, what I like to do. So we have our tomato. What else do I have? Oh, our cabbage. Let's get our cabbage out. And our cilantro from the fridge. Cilantro wilts like so fast, so I kept it in here. Alright, so cabbage. I'm not going to do much to this besides thinly slice it. You can use green cabbage if you want. I like the festivity of red cabbage. Cabbage is kind of another one of those things like celery, like you can buy way too much of it and then what does it do in your fridge? Braised cabbage is pretty good. It's pretty good for you. If you cut, I'm going to use back to my, 1 second. I need to wipe off my cutting board. Remember, clean stations make better food. Alright. What was I saying about cabbage? Braised cabbage is really good for you. It's not probably the most fun thing to eat. But if you thinly slice all your cabbage, and what I'm going to do is just cut off a little bit. Look at the beauty. This is so beautiful. It is really beautiful vegetable. Most of the most beautiful vegetables are not the most fun to eat. But what I was saying is slice it all at the same time. And then when you're making salads throughout the week, just throw it in for a little bit of crunch. You could also make a quick coleslaw with some mayo or some yogurt. When I was a child, I used to really like eating cabbage with just lime and salt. That was really delicious to me. Alright, so I'm just gonna slice this up. If you have a mandolin, it's a really good time to use it. I don't know why I'm doing this. You see, I'm doing something wrong. So I'm chopping my vegetable and making my life hard because it's rotating here. Make my life so much easier if I just turn it on its flat surface. And then I can go ahead and chop it as thin as possible. Now, there's no real key to how to make your cabbage really thin using your knife besides practice. So, well, there is a key. You need a really sharp knife. But the only other way to make your cabbage super thin, like I'm doing a really good job here, super thin, is just practicing cutting it and taking your time. Like, you're not in a rush over there at your house. I'm in sort of a rush because I want you guys to keep watching me. I don't want you guys to get bored, but yeah, so I'm gonna just slice it. Also, fun fact, if you go to Whole Foods, I never knew this until my first job ever, when I was working for the Smiths, and one of the chefs asked me to buy half a cabbage, and I was like, how do I buy half of a cabbage? She was like, at Whole Foods, they'll just cut it for you. I didn't know you could just ask them to cut half of your cabbage at I guess like at fancy stores. So yeah, if you don't want a whole cabbage, maybe just ask them to cut it in half for you. So put our cabbage right there. What else? Oh, let me stir my onions. Oh, my dad already got it. We have our onions and jalapeno back here going for our quinoa and beans salad. And we have our fish cooking. Our fish is basically almost done back there. So we have our cabbage, our tomatoes. What else are we? Oh, avocado. So, cutting avocado. Smooth. Isn't that cool? Smooth. Avocado. Avocados are one of those tricky things to buy because how do we know that it's right? You generally know because it should be, it's kind of weird. Yes, question.
Who are the Smiths?
Oh, my very first job ever as a chef was working for Will and Jada Smith. I was like a kitchen assistant that became like a chef in their house. It was a really fun job. And I learned a lot from all these other chefs that were in the house. That's where I learned the cabbage trick. Like, she was like, just ask them for half. I was like, wow, amazing. All right, so avocado. Avocados are tricky because when you're buying them, you don't want them too soft or too firm because too firm is going to be they're not ripe and too soft is going to be that they're bruised and ugly on the inside. So I can tell you all the tricks and tricks. Look for like a darker colored avocado. You can look at the stem. If the stem removes easily and it's green in there, it's supposed to be good. This stem should remove easily and it should be green, not brown. I can tell you all of those tricks and tips. But at the end of the day, it's always like saying a little prayer to God when I'm opening an avocado, like please be good. And then also when you're opening an avocado, there's been, with the rise of avocado toast, there's been a lot of avocado related injuries, people not knowing how to cut open an avocado. You're going to want to take a knife, a sharp knife. If you have a dish towel, I'm going to tell you the America Test Kitchen way to do this. If you have a dish towel, you want to hold it with a dish towel to even protect your hand even more. If you want to live life on the edge, don't do that. So I'm used to not using the towel. And then you're just going to cut it in the middle and cut it through just like that. And then if it's ripe, everyone say your prayer to God or whoever you believe in. And it should just twist open. Ooh, this one looks like really perfect. I'm very excited. This made me super excited. And then to cut our avocado, you can either dice it, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to show you how to make a really fancy avocado fan. So I'm going to cut it into quarters here, just like that. And then what I'm going to do is peel back the skin. This is another way you'll know if your avocado is actually ripe. The skin will peel off really easily, which again, you don't know until you cut into it, so it's kind of a tricky thing. And then to make a cool fan like they do in restaurants, I'm going to only cut through, I'm not going to cut through the top, I'm just going to cut vertical lines through, just like this. And then, probably like 3 of them, and then it should just push open just like that. Oh, beautiful, right? I'll make 2 of them here. We all know that avocados get brown really easily. So if you are doing this ahead of time, it's best to make all these avocado fans and then just keep them in some lemon water. And they won't go brown. Well, they might go a little brown, but they won't go like horribly brown. I also have this avocado my sister was using earlier, so I'm gonna just go ahead and cut that one as well. Yes, question?
What's the trick for taking out the pit?
Oh, I'll get to that. 1 second. Let me just finish up my fans over here. My dad did the #1 thing of not frying. Never walk away from your pan. But he's been frying for over 60 years. Well, not over 60, over 50 years. I don't think he was frying when he came out the womb. All right. So through, and then we have our little fan. Thank you, Carolyn. We might have to fly you to New York every Sunday, although TT might be mad someone's taking her job. All right, last fan there. So we have all our toppings here. I'm gonna go ahead and check on my onion and jalapeno back here. It smells really good. I'm not looking for color here. I'm just looking for the onion to get nice and translucent, just like that. By cooking our onion in some oil, it's actually breaking it down and making it a little sweeter. If you don't like, a lot of people that don't like raw onions actually like cooked onions, so this is a good way to break those down. And then what I'm gonna do to this is add my quinoa. I'm not actually gonna add all of this because I cooked way too much. Add my quinoa and then open my can of beans and add that to that as well. Who let the fly in this house? I think it was a dog going in and out. My sister is looking at me crazy. All right, so can of beans. Someone asked earlier if I was using cooked beans. No, because I don't have 3 hours. Generally, canned beans are pretty good throughout the week, easy cooking. You do want to check on your can of beans that the sodium is not too high, because sometimes cans of beans have a lot of sodium. So I'm going to just dump this quinoa into there and then use this strainer to strain my beans. You do always want to strain them because if you notice when you open a can of beans, they have like this weird muck, and that's not actually that good of flavor. So I'm just going to rinse them off and then just go ahead and add them to my quinoa and beans, or not quinoa and onions. So basically you want like half and half. So here we have that. Doesn't look, I can't turn the pan that much. And then finally, the last couple things I'm gonna add to this, as you can see, the rice and beans. Because I use black quinoa, it's not as like stark color differential from like white quinoa. Might look a little cooler if you use white quinoa in this case. The last couple things I'm gonna add to this are some cilantro. If you don't like it, you can add parsley or you could skip this step. It just adds a little freshness. And some lime juice. All right. And then this is done. We're just gonna leave it on the stove, just so it stays warm. And this is like baby cilantro, so I didn't remove the stems. If you've watched me before, you know sometimes I remove the stems from herbs. But this was like super, I'll show you guys. Look how like super delicate and fresh it is. So I don't really need to remove the stems. I'm not using these bottom stems, but this top part is totally fine. And then some lime juice. Who cut this lime the wrong way? I will show you how to cut a lime to get, okay, I'm not getting very much juice out of this here, but I'll show you how to cut it so you get a little more juice.
Remember the pit too.
All right, we gotta get to the avocado pit. I get so excited. Carolyn, how long have you been cooking for?
Who?
How long have we been cooking for so far?
Oh.
All right, now, what's the most important thing about cooking? Tasting, of course, because if it doesn't taste good, then we have to fix it because we're gonna eat it and we don't want it to be bad. This tastes really good. I'm not just saying that. It tastes really good. Want to taste it?
Yes.
I guess we'll let my dad have some inside tasting.
50.
50 minutes? Alright, 10 minutes left for an hour.
Mmm, yum, yum.
Oh, see? You liked it. Adds a nice little bit of spice from the jalapeno. The onion makes it, ooh, it has a little bit more spice than I expected. A little bit more spice than I expected from the jalapeno, but it's a good spice. It's a flavorful spice, not an overly hot spice. And the onion makes it nice and sweet. So we'll just leave this to the side for when we're ready to plate up. Avocado pit real quick before we make our sauce for our fish taco. The easiest way to do it is, again, take your towel, because we don't want any injuries. Put your avocado inside the towel, and then just kind of put your knife. Did you guys all see that? Should I do it again? I can't really do it again because once you get it in, but see, it's stuck in there. And then you just twist your knife, and then it just comes out just like that. If your avocado is not ripe, this will not be easy at all. And then to get off the pit, I generally just like put it against the counter and move my knife just like that to get it off. If you are only using half the avocado, 1 second, I know there's a question. You want to keep the pit inside because the pit actually helps it not get brown as fast. And if you're making guacamole, save these pits and put them in your guacamole, and it also helps your guacamole not get so brown. Yes, question.
Do you think it's okay to use your teeth to take out the pit? That's my question.
I think really, that's your question? I don't think you could take a pit out with your teeth. You take a pit out with your teeth?
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend taking out the pit with your teeth, just for the record. All right, so we fried our fish back here. It looks delicious. We have all of our toppings. Like I said, you could get a pico de gallo, but I like everyone to be able to choose what they want because I don't want to force anyone to eat anything. We have our quinoa and beans. We're really ready to go. We just need one last thing because sauces make the world go round. We're just gonna make a quick crema. So a crema, generally fish tacos have the fish, the cabbage, pico de gallo, and some sort of like citrusy cream. We're just gonna make a really easy, quick one with half parts mayonnaise and half part sour cream. Now you could use all of mayonnaise or all of sour cream, but I do find that the mix, because sour cream is sour, hence the name. I love when I say something corny and my sister is just like, oh my god. her faces are priceless over here. All right. Sour cream and mayonnaise mixed together makes a really great mixture because the sour cream kind of balances that fattiness of the mayonnaise. So we'll just give this a mix. And then we're making a lime crema. So if you have a rasp grater, this would be the point. This is a really kind of sad rasp grater. But you want to use the zest of your lime in here. So zest your lime. You don't want to zest crazy because the white pith is bitter, and if you get too much of that in there, it's going to be bitter. So yeah, about the zest of one lime, I think I said a half cup of mayonnaise and a half cup of sour cream. That's like a good amount. And then to that, you would want to use like 1 lime, 1.5 limes. So we have our lime zest and our sour cream. Now we're gonna juice our lime into here, and instead of cutting our lime in half like we most of us do, I'm gonna cut it. This knife is so dull. Slightly off center. I'm gonna use my serrated knife because it might not be as hard. Slightly off center, so I end up with 3 pieces of lime. Then I'm gonna take this middle piece, cut it in half, and then I'm going to look how much more juice you get. Amazing. Ooh, ah, studio audience. Ooh, ah. Thank you in the back. My sister's face is getting priceless. That's amazing. All right, the whole lime juice in here. The whole lime juiced into here. These again are compostable if you have a compost in your backyard. Limes, well, yeah. Aren't all vegetables compostable?
I thought the oranges weren't bad.
Vegetable.
Lime is not a vegetable? Learning something new every day. When your mom is a teacher, you never stop learning. All right, so we have our lime crema over here. Last thing I want to add into this is, of course, salt. Now, fun fact. This recipe is versatile, as all of my recipes are. You could make this spicy if you wanted to and add in some sort of chipotle pepper. You can use this garlic, like Asian garlic paste. You can use this, what is this called? Chamoy sauce. Anything spicy, you'll just make it spicy if that's what you want, if you want a spicier sauce. So now the final thing, all we have to do is plate our tacos up. How much time do I have left? Oh, I have 4 minutes and 55 seconds, I think, before Instagram turns off. So, how to heat up tortillas. Live life dangerously and heat them on the stove. I'm gonna take my 2 tortillas, turn on my stove back here. Oh, it's already on because I left it on. And then just put them, can you see? Can you guys see? Yeah. Straight over the flame and just let them go. Talk to you guys for a second. If you are scared, and then I normally use my hands, but I also grew up with a Mexican godmother who like did everything with her hands, and she made fresh tortillas. So I just turn them on the stove once they're kind of charred with my hands, but of course you can use tongs. I won't judge you if you use tongs. You're actually probably smarter than me because you're not burning your hands. If you don't have a gas stove, or your stove like mine at home doesn't have burners that are big enough to fit the full tortilla over, you can always heat your tortillas in the microwave. I would just suggest putting them in between some wet paper towels for about 20 seconds and only heat up like maybe 10 at a time. The oven is also a good place to heat up your tortillas, but you have to turn the oven on to do that, and that's like a lot of energy for for just some tortillas. So over the stove is literally my choice because it gives a nice char, which we all know that darkness equals more flavor. And it adds a nice flavor to your fish taco at the end. All right, so question.
Can you put the
Tortillas.
The limes in the garbage disposal to make your kitchen smell good?
Yes, you can put your citrus fruit in the garbage disposal to make your kitchen smell better. Yeah, the citrus something does, I don't know, ask Bill Nye the Science Guy what it does, but it makes your kitchen smell nice and fresh if your garbage disposal is smelling not so great. All right, all we have to do left is build our tacos. So I'll take our fish. My dad is like, let me put all my hard work on this one plate. We have our fish. Oh, this plate is not quite big enough for our little quinoa.
Voila.
salad.
Put it on the oven.
Voila, there we go. Thank you for your assistance today. Oh, voila, fish. Fish, yes.
Yummy. Yummy fish.
So I'm gonna put a couple of the pieces of the fish in here. You know, use your judgment that you have. I hope you have anyway. And then I'm gonna put, then I'm gonna put some of our crema. I like to put the crema first because the vegetables look so bright and vibrant that it just aesthetically looks better if the vegetables are on. Second, after the crema, our cabbage that we sliced very thinly, our avocado. I don't think anyone deserves 4 pieces of avocado besides myself. So I'm going to put 2 little pieces of avocado. Also, if you want just a little more freshness, I know you don't want this at home, Janine, but if you want a little more freshness, you can add some cilantro on top of there. And then our quinoa and beans. Nice healthy alternative to rice and beans. This plate is far too small for someone with an appetite like mine. Thanks, Carolyn. Just kidding. All right, now we got to taste this, of course. Let's see. Moment of truth.
Show it to them.
I think, oh no! It's so good, you guys. Anyone at home, you're in for a treat if you're making this at home today. Thank you guys. This is why I never taste anything on camera, because then I'm like, Thank you guys for joining me today in sunny California or New York City, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining Real Life Cooking.
Washington.
I hope I have inspired you to show you that cooking is easy from start to finish in your own home. Join me next week. I'll be back in New York, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you to my dad, Keith Price, my mom, obviously, for being in the background. Woo. And last but not least, my sister for being on the ones and twos and technology guru. Thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed. See you next week. Let me know what you want to see, and check out my website, chefleen.com. See you guys later. Bye.
Right.
That was fun.
Yeah.
This is still
Oh,
on.
you got it.
Still on.
Okay.
Bye guys.
Oh.
I never know how to finish this. Oh.